Welcome back to the White Gray Black Weekly Manga Podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about all of your favorite ongoing Japanese manga. My name is Bruce. I am the proprietor of the White Gray Black YouTube channel. With me again this week is my partner in mayhem, Gautam.
What's up, people?
This week we are focusing on the end of one of the most fantastic fantasy manga of the last decade, Ryoko Kui's Delicious in Dungeon. Additionally, we're going to see what all the hype around Kagurabachi was about and see if it was warranted. And we'll finish off with a weird little chapter 1 called Daddy and Buddy, where knowing gymnastics is a superpower. All that, manga news, and more coming right up. Let's start with the end. Let's start with Ryoko Kui's Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon, which had its final chapter right about 6 days ago or so. This is a series for the books. This is amazing, substantial. Gautam, I grabbed a bunch of pictures from the chapter. I don't even know if we need or want to go through them. Tell me about how you came across Dungeon Meshi, how you liked it, and what you thought about the final chapter here and the ending as a whole.
You know what? I don't even think we need the picks because we know that this is just an encapsulation of everything we've read so far, and it ended so good. It was perfect, man. What a charming and fucking delightful series Dungeon Meshi was. I hope we see it like pop off and hit the mainstream when the anime comes up.
It's going to. I mean, it's Studio Trigger. It's coming in January, I want to say. It's going to be big, and it's finished, so it's going to sell boatloads of volumes. Yeah, this is going to be. I hope this is going to be really big. Although I will say, well, I don't know. The very first 15 chapters are not my favorite, but I think the first season should cover more than that. So I think it'll be good.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know what? Before we get into the nitty gritty, how did you like it?
I loved it. I think this series is great. I think Ryoko Kui is a talent to never stop paying attention to. I hope she comes back and does another manga. I think this proves again how long a manga should be. This is around the same length as something like Full Metal Alchemist. I always want to call it Brotherhood, but it's just Full Metal Alchemist if it's a manga, right? It's in that sort of 90 to 100 chapters long. 90 to sort of 110, 120 chapters long. It has clear progression throughout it. It moves. The characters are great. This is, Ryoko Kui is one of the greatest visual character designers, explorers. I don't know what you want to call it. And the ending is great. The ending took, the last 4 or 5 chapters, I want to say, which is great. There's plenty of time to breathe, plenty of time to resolve everything. Everything comes sort of full circle. It sort of winks and nods at you and tells you what the theme of it is, which I don't know if it was necessarily needed, but is appreciated. That in case you missed it, I think this chapter just comes out and tell you sort of eating is about eating is for the living and not for the dying, and it's a manga about eating. It's not a manga about cooking, which I think is when you go into it, you think, oh, it's kind of a cooking manga. They kind of talk about cooking, but you realize by the end of it that it's actually more about the act of consumption and the act of where does our food come from? How does it tie us together? What does eating mean? What does eating with another person mean? What does sharing a meal? It's a weird thing where it's like it's an eating manga, which is a strange thing to say. But I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. It's one of absolutely stellar. Loved every minute of it. Yeah, I cannot sing its praises quite enough. And sad that it's over.
Me too. And, we didn't get to talk about this chapter when it came out. I absolutely fucking adore the plot point of them eating the final villain. Eating the final villain and saving her sister by eating her.
Yes. Well, and
it's eating-based tactics. It's great.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm talking about, is that it's like I said, the chapter kind of winks, nods, and tells you, haha, it's about eating. But, yeah, it's very interesting that it isn't. I don't know. I'm trying to think. How do I even say it? It's interesting that it's about that eating is maybe the most key plot point of the entire story. Is they eat the they eat the sister's dragon parts, and they try to do that twice, and they eat the main bad guy in order to make it go away, and they eat, it's, yeah, like you said, it's super interesting and weird, but also poignant as a theme,
it's so
thematically.
poignant.
Yeah, it's so good
because it enables all of like the emotional beats, like this is the perfect D&D manga. I've said over and over. It hits like so many great emotional beats, has amazing and nuanced characters, but they still stick to their goofy theme all the way through. And after, like, this sounds funny when we say it, like it's about eating your sister, eating the final boss. It's like, it stops being funny, really, or it stops being like, wow, this is just goofy bullshit, and starts being like, oh, that's great. That's just great writing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's again, like, thematically one of the it's just like, this is one of the strongest thematic manga I've ever read, of like where it starts with talking about eating and your relationship to your environment around you, and ends with consumption and eating and what that means to your interpersonal relationships and still your environment around you. And the one of the most poignant lines that I think is in here is someone says something about, I think it's the very last one, so I'll go to it here, but yeah, it's right here where Elias says, like, meals are the special privilege of the living. In order to stay alive, we need to keep eating. So again, that's like, yeah, again, just the theme of eating and consumption is so clear, and from chapter 1, I could go back and read chapter 1 and be like, yep, it's there, and it's in the last chapter 97 or whatever it is here, and it's great. It's, again, thematically very strong, very consistent, excellent writing.
Yeah. And, I did say it isn't goofy bullshit the whole time. Well, it is. It is goofy bullshit the whole time.
It's fantasy,
but
which is, yeah.
Like, there's a part of me that stops seeing it as, like, cartoony bullshit and actually gets hype when it, like, when the theme comes back around. But yeah, I absolutely adored that chapter. I adored the series. I think one cool thing that I liked about this chapter is how us, the audience, didn't understand the perspective of the winged lion, and how, like, its thought process on Laos's curse, because he was worried that the curse would be that his sister won't come back to life.
Yeah.
And of course his friends knew that that's not his, like, biggest passion in the world. Like, he still loves monsters and loves eating.
It's ironic and funny, yeah. So the curse was that he would never get the thing he wanted most, or never have the thing he wanted most, or something like that. And he's like, oh no, the thing I want most is to bring my sister back. But it's like, no, the thing he wanted most is just to eat a whole bunch of shit. It's like,
yeah, exactly. And the curse ends up being that all monsters are just terrified of him, so they won't even approach his proximity.
Yeah.
And that's like, for anyone else that would be like a good thing, but for him, he's just, like, depressed about that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because we saw, like, the sister coming back to life, and we see, like, kind of an interim plane between life and death. And his sister, I'm forgetting her name for some reason, but
oh god, what is her name? Phelan.
Phelan, yeah, that's right. Phelan meets the winged lion, and he allows her to come back to life, and states, like, oh, that is a worse curse than anything I can imagine. So, like, he didn't even consider her wanting to come back to life as an option, or as something that the party is trying to do, or would want to do, because he considers living in general, as a mortal, to be torture, ultimately.
Right. Well, and also the fact
aligns to this backstory and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that the lion lived with literally an insatiable hunger of never being able to feel satisfied from eating or consuming, and that it's like, well, yeah, it's all just thematically excellent. It's beautifully drawn. Characters are great here. I'm desperately hoping that it does not end here. I mean, I know this has been almost 10 years of her life drawing and writing this. whatever she does next, if she does anything, I'm looking forward to. So I think, and I think
like give her like a few months to get through Baldur's Gate 3 like 4 or 5 times, and I'm sure she'll be back at it.
Yeah, it's like a minor tangent, but I really like what Fujimoto did after he finished part 1 of Chainsaw Man. Just went and wrote like 2 or 3 big one shots, 250 page one shots. I think that's a great sort of practice in refining your storytelling and art and paneling and all that. And I think that Ryoko Kui here would be great to see do just a couple of one shots, short stories essentially. That's the kind
even in the same world. Like I don't think it would alter or change the ending. We could just get like some small afterwards for the characters, like Chilchuk and Senshi,
or prequel things or whatever. I mean, the world is a classical fantasy, but with her own little spin on it, and it's great. Yeah, I cannot recommend this enough. It is now completed. I can now sort of rank it on my top things. I don't know if this breaks top 5 for me. It might be at the bottom of top 5, or it probably is in top 10 of manga I've read all time. But
I can't even think of my top 5.
You don't necessarily have to say it, but I mean, this is very good. This is a top 10.
Yeah.
This is a top 10 manga for me, I think, for sure.
It is amazing. I recommend it so highly. So I hope you've all read it already, so we didn't spoil all this for you. But if not, it's not that actually. Long. Yeah, we didn't spoil much. Go read through this shit. It's fucking amazing.
It's so good, yeah. And if you are not a manga reader and you are interested in the series, the anime is coming out in 3 months and a couple of days. I think January, first week of January. I think you'll get episode 1 of this by Trigger.
I don't think non-manga readers listen to this. That would be crazy.
It would be interesting, but maybe there is. Maybe someone is.
Hey, shout us out. Like if you don't read manga and listen to us, what's going on?
Why are you here? Stay. Please don't leave. Stay around. But why?
Explain the appeal, though. Explain the appeal of this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Man, anything else on Dungeon Meshi, on Delicious in Dungeon? We could gush about it in individual things. We've talked about it in the past, but it's good. Its ending was good. One of the best manga endings, I would say, for sure, because it took like 4 or 5 chapters to do it. It let it breathe. It had falling action. All these things that a lot of manga endings that miss kind of don't have. So
I was absolutely satisfied by it. I have nothing more to say. Aside from go check it out. You won't regret that.
Yeah. Anything else then? Are we good? We're good.
No, let's move on.
Let's talk about a little memeable thing that it's been happening. If you've been paying attention on Twitter and a couple other places, it mostly saw this on Twitter. Last week, I guess this would be almost 2 weeks ago now. 2 weeks ago now, we got some leaked images of this series called Kagurabachi. This is a brand new Weekly Shonen Jump action revenge samurai katana story. This is by Takeru Hokazono. And people started to get hyped about this series. Now,
wild.
Yes. It's a funny thing because after this came out, there were like memes on how hyped people were. Like, oh my gosh, this is the second coming. This is going to be the greatest new thing ever. Look how cool this is. Look how awesome this is. Warning for violence, I say, as there's like splatters of blood and severed limbs on screen. This is a fairly violent series. We're going to have some panels on screen that will show that. It was funny because it came out on Sunday. And all this week, all I've been seeing is people like counter memeing on the Kagurabachi hyper people because this chapter was pretty good. It was not the best chapter 1 I've ever read in my life, certainly. But I thought it was pretty good. What did you think about it, Gautam?
Yeah, so I had, I guess, the opposite initial expectations of everyone that was hyped for it because I thought it would be complete dog shit. And I also thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. I think it's
so it beat my expectations.
Yeah, I'm in a position now where I just assume every new chapter 1 that shows up in Weekly Shonen Jump is just going to be bad. Because if you do that,
this was pitched to me as a revenge fantasy. So like, yeah. I didn't imagine a world where it would be pretty good.
Yeah, it's always hard to tell. It's just one of those like If you just expect everything to be shit, you'll be like, aha, I was correct 3 out of 4 times and surprised 1 time. And that's better than thinking things will be good and being 3 disappointed and 1, met expectations. So set your expectations lower for Weekly Shonen Jump series is what I'm getting at here.
I guess I usually have no expectations, but here I actually have I had a negative expectation. I just didn't think this would be good, but let's go into it.
It turned out I thought I liked. We got a little bit of setup. I liked the sort of a flashback, or I guess it starts in the past and flashes forward about halfway through the chapter. Main character is Chihiro, and his dad. I thought his dad was goofy and funny. I liked.
I loved his dad. That was a great.
Even though the levity kind of goes away in the second half, it's clear to me this author can do sort of a more lighthearted comedic stuff, which I think goes along with the sort of hyperviolence pretty well. When you could only do one or the other, you end up getting into very dark places or goofy things, and nothing seems to matter. But his dad is a swordsmith who participated in some kind of past war. He created a bunch of swords. I don't know if it specifically says that they were magical swords or not. I think maybe it implies it pretty heavily.
I didn't parse that until the
second part.
Yeah.
But they just sort of make swords. They talk about generic kind of chapter 1 thematic. They talk about They kind of do the how do I put this? The arms maker's responsibility type thing, right? Like people. We live in America here, obviously, based on our accents.
I have become death's destroyer of worlds type stuff.
Well, that, and I mean, people have tried to sue, firearms manufacturers for wrongful death and for deaths and accidental deaths and things like that. And so there's always this question of how much responsibility does the maker of a weapon have when that weapon is used to take a life? And that, to me, that seems like sort of maybe the theme of the whole series, which I hope it sticks with, and I hope that it talks about it a little more, because that was the knowledge that the father was trying to pass to the main character here, and I think that he realizes it, as we'll kind of see in the second half. We get this goldfish. His dad liked these goldfish, which we'll also see in the second half, which is interesting. But it was just kind of like a nice, fun little setup. Here's the main character and his dad, and it kind of gives you, what kind of character is he? How is he raised? And some really good. I really like the paneling and the action here. And this is, they're like making a sword in these panels. Oh, I'm not sharing with you, am I? Yeah, so in these panels here, they're just like pounding out and making a sword, and it's really cool. And this is like, I don't know, Gautam, have you ever watched the like sword maker YouTube videos? Like, who are the guys that used to do all the fantasy sword stuff?
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that channel. I don't remember what they're called, but I know.
I feel like everybody used to watch them if you were in like fantasy.
Yeah, they made like the Lich King sword, the Buster
sword. Yeah, they made
Sword,
Frostmourne, Buster Sword, all those. But anyways, it's like, oh yeah, they're like, this is kind of the way you do it. I've seen them like do this like split fold over stuff. So I thought that was cool. I like the first half. You meet this guy Shiba, who comes in, who also again I thought had a cool kind of lighthearted levity to him, which is I think needed in a sort of I'm personally not interested in a sort of hyper-violent, super serious, dark revenge story. But if you cut it with some fun characters in the background, I think it's more interesting to me. And I think that this had some. I think the dad was interesting. I think Shiba was interesting. So I was more drawn in because I think that these were legit kind of fun, lighthearted characters that paint the background of this revenge story.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is most of what worked. I liked the dad a lot. I thought he was goofy. I thought he was funny. And I think the manga the first chapter did a really good job of showing how much the son respected the dad. Even through his like goofy demeanor, he loved that part of him too. And I think that was conveyed really well. Usually in these revenge manga, I feel no sympathy for the revenge taker because it's always so over the top,
or it's petty. It's like,
or it's like petty, or
yeah.
It just doesn't feel relatable in any way to me.
Yeah,
but this feels relatable. Like, at least the reason for his motivation feels relatable because of how it was established.
And we'll kind of get to it. I think it's on like the very last panel or one of the later pages, but his father imparts in the main character here a sort of respect for swords and that sort of responsibility for if you're making a sword or using a sword, you do have responsibility for like taking that life or whatever. And that I think is why the second half works whenever it gets hyper violent and it kills all those dudes, because it isn't just about, well, I'm here to get revenge for my dad. It's like you're doing bad things with swords, and that means you deserve to die. And so that, to me, that sort of that characterization of the main character already worked pretty well there.
I also liked that in this story that the main character isn't really satisfied with the revenge aspect of it. You know, like he's not doing it to make himself happy, and he's not happy. Like,
he's unhappy with it for sure. He isn't like, this will make me feel good. He's like, what he says is like, I wake up every day with like a new sense of hatred and it sucks or whatever.
Yeah, that was some of the edgiest bullshit.
Yeah.
But
it's edgy, but he says it to the Shiba character. The Shiba kind of like makes fun of him for it, which again is like, okay, you are cutting, this sort of edgy bullshit with the right amount of levity.
I kind of like that because I like how the main character doesn't feel that edgy. Like I've read some revenge manga, and they're all so self-satisfied. As soon as they get the smallest bit of revenge, they're like, ha ha ha, I did it. And you face the consequences. I like that. There is no real happiness achieved by the main character, even though he is slowly achieving his goals, So I thought it was pretty good. I think there's only so much enjoyment I can get out of a series like this, to be honest, though.
Yeah, I'm wondering, again, this to me does not strike me as a 300 or 400 chapter thing. It doesn't... Usually they don't have legs for this, but it did introduce some interesting ideas in the second half. So in the second half, we sort of skip forward 38 months. We see there's kind of a mobster. Is this period piece? This looks like maybe it's like 1950s, 60s. Like, I don't think we see any cell phones or much technology. It might even be earlier than that, but there's they're riding on a train.
That guy looks like Goldie Roger we have at home.
The dude with the big handlebar mustache.
Yeah.
But there's some magic users. He does some interesting, like, grows this like sharp plant that like tortures this guy, disappears in a flame. So this feels very, very Demon Slayer-y to me at this point, where it's like, okay, bad magic user guys, man with sword, revenge story. Like, obviously it's painted differently, but a lot of the same beats as Demon Slayer there.
I'm wondering how they're gonna continue making me like this, though, because I liked the dad, and I think that is a good emotional beat, but I'm not really interested in the main character yet.
Yeah, well, and I was about to say that. So I think the way that a series like this survives is on its side characters. So we like the dad. I liked Mr. Shiba. I think he was interesting kind of when he's like hanging out outside while Chihiro's like killing everybody inside. So I think that if the side characters can be likable enough, I'm okay following sort of the edgy guy and his fun friends around, right? Like that sounds good enough to me.
Yeah, I guess I think maybe, I don't know. I'll need to like the main character if I'm going to keep reading. But of course I'm going to give it time to establish all that. They need to... Clearly they haven't explained how he got the scar and exactly how his dad died.
Yes.
They held that closer to the chest. I think the longer you take to reveal that flashback, the more impactful it has to be. So... Right, yeah. I'm kind of curious to see... how this is handled,
I would assume they don't hold that back too far. Like, I honestly think we maybe get that in like chapter 2 or 3, or in the first volume, right? In the first 6 or 7. Because that's not. You're right. The longer you hold it back, the sort of bigger reveal it has to be, right? Like you can't.
Right.
You can't just hold it back forever. I did think that this, especially in the second half, when it gets a little more action focused, had some really good paneling. This page that I've got on screen right now, I think is like some really cool, excellent paneling, especially for WSJ, which I would say usually generally doesn't prioritize it. But yeah, I mean, this is a super good panel page, I think, right there. And then once you get into the action, I did think the action looked really good here and was paneled really well. I thought it was pretty cool, and it does lean hyper violent, but that's a sort of stylistic thing that doesn't bother me. And I don't know, it is encroaching into that sort of. Like the one-man army badass, right? Is like this guy, like
John Wick's.
Yeah, there you go, John Wick. Yeah, exactly. The John Wick archetype, where he lands on the table. he spins around, cuts 4 guys' throat. Yeah, and here's the thing I was talking about, where he's like, I cannot allow slime like you to wield katana. And again, just some really cool staging and sort of camera positioning here under him when he's grabbing the sword. And then he does some kind of magic with the swords, right? And summons the
fish.
I think it's all 3 goldfish, or maybe just 2 of the goldfish.
Well, the black one's a beta fish, right?
No, that's a goldfish with the big eyes, right? Because I think they were all goldfish in the start. But yeah, so he has this magic katana. My guess, if we were to make a prediction after chapter 1, something about his dad's soul is in that sword, and that's why it is magic. And that is, I'm gonna call an audible here and say that the way that his dad made those swords that ended the war all those years ago, or why he was so famous and popular, is there's some kind of magic of imbuing a person's soul into a sword, but it requires them to die. And so he would just, like, his dad would do that. And that's why his dad was so focused on teaching him the, like, responsibility of, like, if you make a weapon or if a weapon's in the wrong hands, it's a very bad thing. My guess is that his dad either died and said, like, well, if I'm going to die, I can put my soul into this sword and give it to my son or something like that. So my guess is that's what's going on.
If I'm going to die, I'm going to take my fish with me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again,
I think that's a pretty good call. That could very well be the case. Or maybe he just killed his fish and used that for the sword. Who knows?
I mean, maybe it's like, oh, I used the souls of something else. I don't know.
That would be super lame if it was a fish instead of his dad.
Like, I killed 3 goldfish and it made the sword very strong. It's like, wow.
Man, what a sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah, see, because there's this line over here on the left side. It's like the katana that boy wields was Kunishige's last katana, the one he gave his life to make. It's like, okay, I'm lining stuff up here.
I think you're on the money. Yeah.
It's going to be something like that, right? Like either you give a part of yourself to make a sword, or you give your soul and it's in the sword or something. But this is one of the images that was the preview images that got people hyped up, where, again, I think it's good action paneling. I think it's good, cool, interesting, badass. He's just cutting like 30 guys in half with a single swipe. I like the action in the series. And I think that for WSJ, just a good, solid, I don't want to call it a Demon Slayer type, but just a good, solid, guy with sword, is badass, fights stuff. As long as it's sort of got a good enough skeleton, which this one I thought chapter 1 had a good enough skeleton. I liked it. As long as it doesn't lose itself and keeps going, like, this is kind of the way Sakamoto Days started, in my opinion, right? It's like chapter 1 of Sakamoto Days is like, it's okay, it's good. I had really good action, better than this for sure, but, this strikes me as the same sort of, it's just going to be a fun action thing with, pretty thin, decently thin plot and characters that if they're good enough to string it along and enjoyable enough, sure, I can keep up with it. So,
yeah, me too. It was an easy read. I thought it was pretty solid from the first chapter. I don't know what people were expecting here. I don't know why they overhyped themselves for this.
I mean, because people are stupid, which is okay. But yeah, I mean, I thought this was okay. I think it opened enough questions, or left enough questions open that I'm interested in it. I thought it was a solid enough chapter 1. It's kind of looking like this year we might have a couple more hits than we had last year. Last year, the only things from last year that ended up surviving WSJ were Akane, and then the Nishoi Isin test.
Oh, Cypher.
Cypher, yeah, Cypher Academy. I think it's just those 2, right? Because we had Fabricant made it to like chapter 40 or something, but everything else has been canceled from last year, I think. There might be one more thing. Yeah, there might be one more thing that still survives, but this year kind of looks like it's got a couple more things going.
Let's see. Let me just. I think you're absolutely right. It's just those 2.
Yeah. So I don't know if Cypher Academy is long for this world. I should probably give it another shot. We didn't like the first 6 or 7 chapters of it. It wasn't for us, but they changed translators. Cypher Academy. Because Ginka Luna,
super
PPP got canceled. Tokyo Demon Bride story, yeah. But yeah, I mean that was Kagurabachi. I don't know. Is anything else to say about that? Really, I think
not really.
Seems pretty.
It was fine.
Yeah,
pretty good.
pretty good. I'm interested. Again, like I said, stronger year for WSJ. I think MMA is great. I think this is great.
MMA is great.
I think this is pretty good. What was the one? Was there something last week too? What premiered last week that was good?
It was. I didn't read it. It was like this wordy one that I put off for later, and I never got to.
Why am I? I'm just like totally forgetting. I have to go to my own YouTube channel to remember what we talked about.
Oh, last week? Oh, yeah. I don't remember. But yeah.
Oh, Mama Yu Yu. Yeah.
Mama Yu Yu. Yeah.
Yeah, which was pretty decent. And chapter 2 I thought was also pretty good. I'll stick with that.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I think putting aside MMA is the best of the lot. But Mama Yu Yu, I am more interested than any of the rest, aside from MMA.
Yeah. But I mean, that's like potentially 3 new big things. And people have been talking maybe too much, but assumedly Jujutsu Kaisen might be coming to an end. People have been talking about My Hero Academia coming to an end. So WSJ is definitely looking for the next sort of big thing. And I think Sakamoto Days will be their next bigger thing, because once that anime comes out, Sakamoto Days is fucking great. So
and Akane.
Yeah, well, and Akane too. I think Akane might have a little bit more limited appeal, especially in the West, just because Rakugo.
In the West, for sure.
In the West, for sure.
It is a hit. It is a hit.
It is super good. And again, like structured like it's a sports thing, I think will get people into it more. It reminds me sort of Chihayafuru, which is a shoujo josei manga, but it's structured sort of around sports stuff, and that's I think why a lot of people start to get into it and then love the sort of romance and other aspects of it. I love Chihayafuru. It's a great series. But yeah, I'm curious, you listener, watcher, reader. Now you can't read it. There's no transcript. Listener or watcher, leave us a comment letting us know what you thought about Kagurabachi. Were you hyped beforehand, and did it live up to your expectations? Did you hear about it? Did you like it? I think this one has a lot of potential, just because if I'm a 14-year-old boy, this might be the coolest thing I read, right? Like this appeals to me as a teenager.
I think so. I think it appeals more if I was younger.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that I think if you're younger, this is your shit, right? This is more Demon Slayer, right? Which I don't really like Demon Slayer. I didn't think it was very well written. It did a lot of things that I just couldn't handle. The anime is gorgeous. The opening is awesome. But this
fantasies, like standard power fantasies, definitely appealed way more to me back then. I get it.
Cool. Let's talk about our last weird little thing. Mm-hmm. This is a series that showed up on Reddit, and I was like, oh, interesting. I'll read this. It is called Daddy and Buddy. This is by an author called Tendai Yano. Gautam, did you read this?
I did.
Okay. This is a weird... I don't even know how to describe it. This is essentially gymnastic Power Rangers save children from demons that haunt them. And the main character is like a 30-something-year-old... It's like a 38-year-old dad who in gymnastics is a superpower. And that is exactly what this is. I'm not stretching at the truth. But I thought this was pretty good. Like, I was pretty happy with this. How'd you feel about it, Gautam?
I didn't like it that much. I liked parts about it. I like how the author wrote children. Like I liked his home life, him interacting with his like kids who are freaking out. All that stuff was great. But I didn't like the gym buddy or the monsters, or him joining or trying to join the gym buddy system. And I don't like that these gym instructors are the superheroes of this world who fight invisible child emotion monsters. It's all unique. It's just
he's definitely unique. Yeah,
just I didn't like it that much.
Yeah, it's definitely not like the best thing I've ever read. I will say I appreciate how different this is. I appreciate that the main character is an adult, is married with children, is not a completely dysfunctional relationship. It is just sort of, normal average.
It's a good relationship. They just have 3 kids. Yeah.
And those 3 kids are possessed by demons, essentially. I thought the action
in this universe, all kids are.
Apparently, every negative emotion is actually just a demon, and it's super easy to. Your child is feeling confused. It's like you slap a bug, and now he's not.
It sounds like this universe is easier than ours.
This feels to me almost like. Speaking of power fantasy, This strikes me almost as like an adult with children who is like, I wish it was easy to fix my kids' problems by just like punching a bug. Like, I wish I could just, help them out easier.
Yeah, it's very much like that.
Yeah,
but I liked all this, right? Like where the kids are just being snotty and hitting each other and being little rascals. I thought that was good, and I thought I liked the art too.
Yeah, I think the art's great in this.
But yeah, I didn't like any of this stuff.
It's a little. The second half, I definitely would say, is a little uneven. We'll have to see how. I'm curious how the series will continue, because if it goes too far into the you're like a new Power Ranger and we have to teach you the ropes, and it goes more kind of shonen-y, I'm definitely not going to like it as much.
They're definitely going to go in that direction.
I would much prefer this to stay being a bit more adult, and like I'm thinking of Kaiju number 8, Monster number 8, right? Where you start with the character who's 34 or 32 or whatever, and he seems very much like an adult, and he kind of has a wisdom and experience to him, and he's put into this kind of extra situation of becoming a powerful person, a Power Ranger, a Kaiju, whatever you want to call it. And in Monster number 8, like maybe 20 or 30 chapters in, suddenly our main character is just a shonen protagonist who acts like a 14-year-old boy, and it's pretty lame. And so I hope that this one can keep the sort of adult angle on this guy has a wife and 3 kids and a family to take care of. And yes, he can see these demons, and yes, maybe he wants to be a Power Ranger, but like, how do you juggle those responsibilities? Like, that's more interesting to me than how do I learn to be a Power Ranger, right? Like, not as interested in that.
Can I point out a flaw? Like just a big problem is the fact that you use the term Power Rangers 3 times, because the name Gymnastics Buddy is so goddamn stupid.
I wonder if that's a translation thing, because maybe Gymnastics Buddy sounds way better in Japanese. Probably does.
Right? Yeah. It sounds so stupid. Like,
I wonder if
it doesn't even flow off the tongue, even if it doesn't make sense. It doesn't flow off the tongue.
I'm gonna use this little Google thing. I'm gonna see if it'll translate. Will it translate this for me? It's not going to do it. It just says buddy, all caps, when I use my Google Translate. So,
okay.
Anyways, well, which is probably just it doesn't know what some kanji means or something. But
right.
Yeah, gymnastics. This is weird. And the fact is that a lot of the other Power Rangers based series have not caught on when they were a little too different. I'm thinking of what was the romance one where the Red Ranger's dating the like bad girl?
Love After World Domination.
Yes, that was a great series. That got canceled.
Great.
That got canceled because they gave it an under-budget anime that nobody really liked, and then the anime didn't boost sales, and then they're like, "All right, you're done." So, but yeah, Ranger Reject is great, but
Ranger Reject is great, but that's like a spin on the trope. This seems to
very
just
much,
be,
but it's playing it straight.
This is playing it straight. Yeah,
it's playing it straight with some interesting new twists and new ideas on it, but. I'm curious enough to continue reading this as long as chapters keep getting posted. I hope it can address and sort of keep with the more adult angle and the sort of wife and kids angle, because that interests me more than just a gymnastics dude being a Power Ranger, which is like, or a gymnastics buddy. Excuse me. I did like some of the action paneling, like this. I really liked when he does his double twist layout attack. It's like, okay,
that was
that's
funny
sick.
looking too, right? Because of his expression on his face.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not what I expected with these 2 chapters, because Kagurabachi is however you say it, is so goddamn generic that I like in premise it is so generic that I expected it to be dog shit, and I thought and ended up thinking it was pretty good. Daddy and Buddy, usually I'm kind of a sucker for incredibly unique premises. I can have a bias. I'm like on their side a little bit before I even read it. And there's a part of me that's still like, I love the adult character. I love that he's married and has 3 kids, and it's so unique, but I liked it so much less than Kagurabachi. And this is like one of these examples where it's cool to be unique, but there are some things that just don't work.
Yeah. I For me, it's yet to be seen. I'm interested. Like I said, I'm interested enough to keep reading it. I think it's an interesting enough premise that could do some cool ideas. It didn't necessarily do them in chapter 1, but it was a lot of setup. So I'll be curious to see where it goes. Yeah. Anything else on Daddy and Buddy?
Nope. I guess we'll see how it ends up. I'm kind of curious to see how, like, kind of like sales numbers and kind of general popularity statistics for all of these.
Yeah, because this is definitely one of those ones that could be a sleeper hit. You never know. I did also like like you said, the art is good. I thought the designs of the little monsters and stuff were all pretty decent. Like, they're all kind of interesting, and they have the names of like what little negative emotion they are or whatever. Like Quirrell, and says crying, and it's like a neat little. They look very much like the first through the fifth enemies you encounter in a Final Fantasy game. Like, oh yes, this is the one-eyed thing that has 12 HP, and I will kill it now.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I love this page in particular because the wife is just wiping that little girl's ass, and she has like just the blankest stare on her face. Like, she just
I didn't even see that, but yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, tantrum.
Yeah, and this other kid's just slapping the other kid. Yeah, it's just very, very good.
Yeah. So we'll see on that one. Curious about it. Could be interesting.
Yeah.
I forgot. There's a little bit of backstory with the main character and stuff, which was kind of like, oh yeah, it's typical, like, haha, backstory or whatever. Yeah. Do you think I can be a gymnastics buddy too, Gautam?
No.
I do not know gymnastics, so I absolutely could not.
Also, like, I think this guy is more equipped, like, the main character is more equipped to be a gymnastics buddy than the other dude. Look at how he's built like a brick house.
Yeah.
That guy looks tiny compared to him.
I thought about that too, because it's funny how it's like, okay, yeah, the gymnastics buddy Power Ranger man like kind of gets his butt kicked, and then the MC comes in with his like double twisting, double layout, and just like one shots this big thing. And so I wonder if this dude's like, wow, I'm not very good at this. Maybe this guy is better at my job than I am.
Yeah, it's like thinking you're a tough guy, and then you see the mountain from Game of Thrones, and you're like, exactly. I physically can't ever get there, right?
Yeah, it's playing a game offline and then going online and getting like pub stopped.
Story of my fucking life, dude.
For pretty much everything. Cool. Yeah. So that's Daddy and Buddy. We'll check back in on that one if it keeps going and see if it gets any more interesting.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Let's hit on some news things. There's just a little bit this week. So many. So WSJ, the last new series of the Fall Block 2 on Ice. That's the new series. Premieres this Sunday, WSJ. Some kind of ice skating sports thing. Interested. I am expecting, at this point, the fact that we've gotten Mama Yu Yu and Kagurabachi, and they've both been pretty good. I'm fully expecting this last one to be absolute dog shit. So my expectations are for 2
I thought you were going to say the opposite of what you said. That's so funny.
I don't think WSJ can do a block of 3 or 4 releases and have them all be good. I've never seen it. I don't think it's ever happened before.
It's like a double rainbow situation. Yeah.
It just doesn't statistically. Because I think that they've got to swing for the fences on some of these, and they either swing too hard for the fences and it's weird and bad, or they play it too safe and it's something. And this one seems
like a forced competitor to Medalist, Yuri on Ice, and Dogs Red. Like it seems like they're throwing their hat in the ring more than.
And Medalist is so good. You're not going to beat Medalist. I think they're going to probably lean more sports into it, but who knows?
The problem is if they lean more sports into it, I think Dogs Red is like serious competition,
Yeah, and Dogs Red is more hockey, and ice hockey is, in the West at least, definitely broader appeal than competitive ice skating, which I would maybe assume the same is true in Japan, although I'm not sure.
I think it's gonna be hard to beat Dogs Red though. Like I genuinely think that's like a really good series so far.
I need to catch up on it because I only read 2 or 3 chapters, and I saw that we're on like chapter 8 or 9 now. So
it is very fun. So
I need to, because I need to catch up on it because I also really want to read. Was it Golden Kamui? Is the other of the author's thing?
Golden Kamui,
which looks really interesting. So,
I think this next this ice skating thing, 2 on Ice, that's coming out soon, it is just going to draw comparisons, at least from me, to everything we've mentioned.
Yes.
And that's gonna make me kind of a harder critic on it, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping it is really good, so I can eat my words.
And I wonder if the timing of this comes because the Medalist anime, I think, starts in October. It's either in October or January. So they might be hoping to sort of coast off of like, and Medalist is amazing. It's so good. And so if that anime is a good enough adaptation, people are going to love that. And then they're going to go, okay, what other ice skating manga is out there? Oh, what, Two on Ice from WSJ? Maybe that's what they're counting on. I don't know. We'll have to see. My expectations are dirt low on this one just because I don't. It's just statistically impossible to have 3 in a row good releases.
Yeah, I'm the same here, and I don't really care about ice skating. So
I also don't. Medalist is good without caring about ice skating, which is what makes it so good.
That's what good stuff does, right? Like,
exactly.
I didn't really care about Rakugo.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
Akane makes me care about Rakugo, you know. So that's what good series do. So we will definitely see here.
Yeah. Let's see. Next on the news list, we've got Nippon TV has acquired Studio Ghibli. This, in my opinion, is a pretty big deal. Studio Ghibli, from what I understand, has been sort of an independent. They essentially are a anime, movie production team that only really has worked with maybe 3 or 4 directors. It's only Miyazaki, his son, and I think maybe 1 or 2 of the guys who works really closely with Miyazaki have directed a couple things. This getting acquired by a larger sort of distribution network.
This makes sense.
Yeah, and I think
this is the Miyazaki show. Ghibli is Miyazaki. He holds all control and pulls all the strings. And he'll be gone soon, right? He's very old.
Yes, he's very old. He's smoked his whole life, from what I understand.
He's going to retire or something else. Sorry, but it's true. So I understand that they're planning for what happens when Miyazaki is no longer the one in control of Studio Ghibli, right?
Well, and I wonder if this was a move from Miyazaki, who seems more fiercely independent for his whole life, but maybe. I mean, the last couple of movies Miyazaki has released, the last really big one he had, I think, was like The Wind Also Rises or The Wind Rises. That was a couple of years ago. The last couple have not been big. He hasn't had a really big hit since Howl's Moving Castle, maybe? Or Ponyo, I guess, was after Howl's. Ponyo was probably the last big hit they had. And that was 2010, maybe? 2009?
I will say this, though. It doesn't matter because Ghibli movies always make money, are always profitable off of reputation alone. People just go see it, and they always look great, right? That helps.
They do always look good. I think that the quality of their movies is probably higher than the sales numbers for those more recent ones would let you know. I'm super curious to just go and watch some more. I will say, if you are interested in Miyazaki and Ghibli, highly recommend you go and read the manga of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, because it's fucking amazing. Gautam and I just finished a full read-through and a full sort of deep dive into that, which is on the channel. I also think Ghibli being bought by Nippon TV drastically increases our chances of a full adaptation of that manga. It might be going from a 1%
You're
to 2%.
goddamn right about that.
It might be going from 1% to 2%, but I do not think this is something that Ghibli ever would have done on its own. I do not think it would have made a regularly scheduled programming anime. A syndicated, a TV station owning them might say, hey, if we own Nausicaa, and this is, easy 4 or 5 seasons of anime that is going to be premiere television, why not do it? And then either, let Studio Ghibli, it will probably end up, if they do it, which again, I think is very unlikely, it'll probably be Studio Ghibli and another studio cooperating. I don't think Studio Ghibli's big enough to produce a sort of weekly anime, but I am just excited thinking about the possibility that this is not something that I think would have happened if Studio Ghibli was not bought. And now that they are, I think there is a slightly more chance that we do get that full Nausicaa adaptation.
Bruce, I actually don't think this is this unlikely. I think it went from not 1% to 2%, but 0% to 30%.
Oh, because really? You think it's 30%?
Yeah, and here's why, right? It's a TV network, and once Miyazaki's gone, for whatever reason. He is the big name, right?
Yes.
And he has work that a lot of people haven't consumed, and many consider his magnum opus.
Yep.
That is,
and it's
just
old.
Not
the movie
finished.
now at this point, the movie now at this point is almost 40 years old. Think about that.
So honestly,
over 40 years old. Yeah,
I'd give it like 25% odds that we see Nausicaa as an anime.
It actually might be even more. I was looking. I was like, I don't know much about Nippon TV. I don't know what they've done. I checked their Wikipedia page, scrolled through it. I saw this is Nippon TV original programming, and I'm seeing some stuff like, okay, Hunter x Hunter is in here. Inuyasha is in here. What else did I see? Claymore is another Lupin the Third. So they've done some stuff, right? Monster is in here. That's the best thing I've ever read, potentially. Definitely the best manga I've ever read. So they have made some big stuff, and I wonder. I mean,
the
this
fact
could.
That they made a 50+ episode monster series means that they're not afraid of adapting slow burns. And not
granted, it was also
a slow burn, but yeah.
Granted, it was also 20 years ago when the state of anime was a little bit different. Like, I don't think this sort of seasonal model was not quite in place. But, yeah, I mean, all of that to say, Nippon TV does anime production, clearly funds and somehow informs original anime production. They now own Studio Ghibli. Now, the thing I don't know is I'm not sure who owns Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, right? Is that just owned by Miyazaki, or is that a Studio Ghibli production? I know that it was also published in a magazine.
It's either owned by Miyazaki or the magazine that it was originally published.
Yeah, or some co-owner. I mean, it might be owned by Ghibli just because it's Miyazaki's company, and it might be like,
he bought it.
Or it might just be one of those things that, me as a writer works for a company, so my company owns the publication, not me solely. I'm not sure. But again, that's sort of the most exciting thing about that news is because we, like I mentioned, Gaucho and I went through that, all 7 volumes. It's fantastic. One of the best manga I've ever read. It's so good. You should go check it out and go check out our videos and write. If you can write Japanese, write and fax, because I know they still use faxes. Fax Nippon TV and be like, I would like a 6-season series fully adapting Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind now that you own Ghibli. Go, do it.
Please fax them that, because I would absolutely adore it as well.
Yeah. But yeah, that's to me that's sort of the big
then
news.
take a picture of your fax and post it in our comment section so we can shout you out for
yes. Or write one that we can all copy paste and fax in. That would be another good one.
I don't think anyone has a fax machine anymore. I just
all of Japan does. Every office in Japan uses faxes to communicate, from what I understand.
Okay, got it.
So
we'll
that
talk
was
to our one Japanese viewer and
yes,
beg
we
them.
can take
Please.
it to FedEx Kinko's or whatever and be like, I know you haven't heard this phrase in 8 years, but I need to fax something to Japan. The other big news thing is One Piece live action on Netflix. Season 2 was officially announced by the night with a neat little video from Oda talking on a transponder snail, which I liked.
That was cute.
Glad to have it. Yeah, and I mean that's another thing that, again, we did a sort of deep dive review on the channel that you should go check out. One Piece live action. We did 4 episodes, 2 episodes in each of them. Reception for it was really good. I'm excited for season 2. I'm glad. I think season 2 is easily going to be better than season 1 if they stick to their guns and do the same quality stuff. So excited.
It's all uphill. Is that like a positive thing I'm saying? It's all uphill from here. Like, it gets better is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it is. I guess, yeah, it's all uphill from here. That has 2 connotations to it. I don't know if that works, but
yeah, because
it is harder to move uphill. But
going downhill.
Actually, no, it's all downhill from here. Yeah,
that's a bad thing. It's all downhill from here.
No, it's all downhill from here means it's an easy ride from here on out. Is what that means.
Well, logically, that's what it means, but that's a negative saying. It's all downhill from here.
Maybe I've done hikes, and you get to the top, and you go, "It's all downhill from here," and that's a very positive thing. So
yeah, but that's like in the context of hiking,
true,
mountain biking, right?
I don't know.
Like,
hold
on, have I been thinking about that saying wrong this whole time? Is it like a good thing? to say it's all downhill.
I think it's context dependent, because if it's...
It is a stupid thing if it's context dependent, if it could mean two opposite things.
Well, because there's the idea of like, oh, I'm over 40, and it's like, well, it's all downhill from here. You know, you're over the hill. That's a negative thing. But if you're hiking and you get to the top, you're like, oh, it's all downhill from here. Or you're riding a bike, right? So, oh, all downhill is easy. So I've
it's only
heard
positive
it used
in the context of hiking and biking and mountaineering.
If the path traveled is simpler going downhill, it's positive. So I would, and I've heard it used in that. I've used it in that context more often.
Okay, you know what? I'm instituting a law. We're just getting rid of that phrase altogether. It kind of sucks. It makes no sense.
And we're just going to use it's all up and to the right from here with One Piece.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all up and to the right. Here. Yeah. I'm excited for season 2. I have already seen, as another little tidbit, I think I sent you and a couple other people, already the casting Kureha has already been talked about for Jamie Lee Curtis, and she posted on, I think, Instagram today that's like, hey, as soon as the saga, after the writers and the actors get their fair share, she's like, I am like literally going to talk to the guy, and the main showrunner of the show responded to her and is like, yep, as soon as we get what's ours, I'm giving you a call, Jamie. So I think we talked about that maybe at the end of the last episode of our review, but that's exciting news. I'm like 89% sure that we're going to get Jamie Lee Curtis as Kureha in season 2 of One Piece live action, which is pretty cool.
Before this announcement, I was 100% sure, and now I am still 100% sure.
Okay, I mean, it seems very likely.
Because it was like, it's such a match made in heaven. She's a fan. She said she wanted to be on it before they even...
like years before.
Posted a trailer. Yeah, like, it is such a good fit and such an easy get, I feel, that I would have been disappointed if they cast Kureha as someone else, you know?
Now it's like, okay, she has made a post about it. The main showrunner of the show has responded or made a post back, and it's like, if this doesn't happen, if like someone stands in the way of this, it's going to be very disappointing. So I agree with that.
Agreed.
Yep. One last little announcement. This is technically, actually, I guess it was technically 3 days ago, so it would have been the 19th, is technically the 1-year anniversary of this podcast. On September 19th, 2022, I sat down and live streamed my thoughts on all of the manga for that week. You can no longer go watch that because it was not a good podcast. I think I did that for 2 weeks. Gautam, you watched me and were just like, you need someone else to talk to, and you've been on the podcast pretty much ever since. But yeah, this is technically the 1-year anniversary of our podcast. I think we'll do a more solid 1-year anniversary, which I believe is at the end of October, is when we both started doing it, and I left the episodes up that you can go back and watch. So we'll count that as our official 1 year, but this is technically the idea had been brewing.
Hey, congrats, buddy. I guess congrats to both of us.
Congrats to both, yep.
This was a great time. 1 year well spent, right?
Yeah, I think so. I've had a fun time doing it. I'm happy with pretty much everything about it. I think it's only gotten better.
Agreed.
It's great.
And
it's super fun.
I've enjoyed the manga I read more because discussing it makes you think about it more and kind of notice aspects. And you point stuff out that I don't notice, and I'm sure
you bring up stuff that I have always missed. So
yeah, like that kid getting her ass wiped.
Yes. Sometimes you just don't look at the whole panel.
Happy 1 year, man.
I think we will have
pop a bottle of champagne at some point.
Yeah, we'll have an official. So this is 1 year in time, but we'll have a sort of 52 weeks of us together doing the podcast, which again I think is either the last week of October or maybe the first week of November is when that'll be. So we'll do something special there. We might do Manga Hot Takes Part 2. We might do rankings or something fun on that week, but just to celebrate, because
we'll read all of New Ace Exorcist.
Yeah,
I'm
kidding. You can't ask too much. Don't ask too much.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot to ask. But yeah, we'll look forward to that. And hey, if you're a watcher or a listener and you've stuck around this far in this episode and you've listened to even one other episode, thank you. We appreciate you. We have a very small, I'm not even going to call it a community because we have a very small number of people listening to us, but I appreciate every little number that I see on my YouTube synopsis. It makes me happy. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for 1 year. Look forward to more and more years. I don't think there's any reason to stop doing this because it's fun, even if nobody watches, which is essentially what the last year has been. So
hey, it's just a good time we're having regardless, right?
Yep. It's just a new pastime for boys. Make a podcast. I have
you get to
several
hang
friends
out
who
with
have
your
their own
buddies
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to hang out with your buddy and read a bunch of nerd shit. What's not to
Exactly.
like?
Yeah. I mean, and we would be doing this anyways. We are essentially just recording the conversations we might have because we did this for years before. So
True.
Gautam, what's your one more thing? What else have you been doing? You finished Armored Core 6 is what I heard.
Yeah, so it took me about 21 hours to get to Chapter 4 in Armored Core, and then it took me another 6 hours to beat the game 3 times.
Really?
It was insane. It just all clicked at once, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fantastic game. I actually wish there was more because the gameplay was so fucking smooth. I love
good.
piloting that robot. Also, the true ending, quote unquote, is absolutely hilarious. And
Really, I need to play it because if it's that short, I could get through it pretty quick in this weekend. So
yeah, you know what?
I'm like halfway through the second new game, so I have to.
If you want to make it even faster than what I did, you can just double Zimmerman, put stun needles on your shoulders, and
I've seen
freeze
those
that
very
game.
strong. Yeah,
they're insane. Yeah, I had to stop using them because they were just one-shotting bosses and shit.
Well, and I thought the songbirds, like I would use double songbirds for most of the game, and I was like, wow, these are maybe just too strong. Like you stun something and you get like 4 grenades on them, and it's just stuff just falls over. But yeah, those needles, from what I understand, are even stronger.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I'm okay with the janky ass balance because this game doesn't feel like Souls, where it is supposed to be grueling and punishing. It's just more of a hey, do cool shit and have fun kind of a game.
There's a little bit. I can definitely see a little bit of the Souls informing some of their bosses, but like we both not like hard step, but we both had a couple of tries on Balteus, which is sort of the first big wall. And to me, there were like no more.
That was my only wall.
Yeah,
but it was
like,
a very big one. That
it was.
Wall, yeah.
It is. I don't know if it's disappointing. I would have liked for there to be a little bit more challenge in some of the bosses, but I think
it just clicked for us too well because we spent so much time on Balteus,
Yeah, well, and that's kind of that's how Sekiro kind of was for me. Is like I got to like the first Genichiro fight, and then once I got that, the rest of the game felt pretty easy to me. Now I didn't do the final boss because I got to it and was like, nah, I don't want to do this. But
I felt the same way about Sekiro, except it was still challenging for me the whole way through. But Genichiro was a hard wall, and then I'm like, oh, this is all doable. Did the rest of the game, and then I got to Ishin, the Glock Saint, and I'm like, this is impossible. This is impossible.
Yeah.
I can't do this.
I did that fight once and was sort of like, this is going to take me another 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and I'm not really interested in doing that right now. So
he is so fucking hard. He's so aggressive.
It's also one of those phase fights where it's like, oh, phase 1 is pretty hard, and phase 2 is even harder. And if you can get through both of those with enough healing, phase 3 also very hard. So
and you have to fight Genichiro before any of those phases.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's like a 4-phase fight.
Yeah. That is maybe... Actually, no, I lied, because the Demon of Hatred in Sekiro, for me, was also a very hard fight.
I haven't tried that one.
Okay, that took me... That was a weird one, because all the other bosses feel very sort of precision, like, oh, block them at the right time. That was just a Dark Souls boss in the middle of a not Dark Souls game. Well, no, you would think, but it's just like, oh, you just can't block his moves, and you spent the whole game doing parries, and it's like, oh, you just can't parry him. He just hits you.
Oh, that sucks. Okay,
so you have to dodge and run around. You have to literally fight him more like a Dark Souls boss, like running and dodging.
I don't even know Sekiro has iframes. So okay, that's weird.
It does. They are not much. I think they're very short, or maybe it doesn't at all. But
and you know what? Speaking of iframes and not much on the dodge. What's your one
Souls Wars games in general? Yeah, I've been playing Lies of P. Lies of P is a Souls-like. Lies of P is the best Souls-like game not made by FromSoft.
That is cool to hear. I have to play that.
I think it's very good. I think it is. It's obviously imperfect. I think all the FromSoft games have little sort of like, oh, that's annoying, or oh, I wish they didn't do that. But this is like, you can feel that these people were just like, hey, let's make a love letter to Bloodborne and put our own little spin on it, and include the Pinocchio lore, ? Which actually is kind of fun.
That does seem kind of fun, yeah. But I have no idea what the fuck is going on here.
It's setting wise. The thing I can say is that it's BioShock meets Bloodborne.
That sounds awesome.
Yes, and there's an idea of like puppets, robots, and stuff going on, but it's, I don't know, it's simplified a lot of stuff. It has a lot of the same systems from both Sekiro and Bloodborne, so this game has more of a focus on blocking and then perfect blocking, or people sometimes just say parrying. If you block an attack, you take you block a percent of the damage, and then you take a percent of the damage, but you can then recover that taken percent by attacking afterwards. And so that's
Sekiro born.
Yeah, that's very Bloodborne rally system. And then if you perfect block, perfect parry, you take no damage and you get like a clanging noise. And if you perfect block enough on an enemy, you get a chance to hit them with a strong attack and knock them down, which is very Soulsborne. So the combat feels very familiar, but it's slightly different. There's they have pared down the stat system and given them stupid names, like your strength is called like motility, and your
that sucks.
dexterity is called, I don't even remember, like fusility. It has some stupid name. Also, I made a very drastic mistake in that I looked at the stats. I started strength. I was like, well, I don't normally do strength. And then I figured out like, oh, there's, strength, dexterity, and like magic. And I was like, oh, the magic stuff seems pretty cool. And I got a weapon that uses the magic. So I'll just level magic. I leveled magic. And then it turns out none of the boss weapons you can get in this game, which are all the like really cool, like some of them are straight up Bloodborne, like switch weapons. Mm-hmm. None of those scale on the magic in this game. They are all either dex or strength in some degree. Silly. And that was like so disappointing.
That's very silly.
And I don't know if you can respec. I think you can at the end of the game, but I can't yet. So I might just level more strength. But anyways, really good game. Really cool stuff. The level design is, I would say, just as good as a Soulsborne game. It is much sort of smaller scale. The game's a lot more linear. You don't sort of get the opportunity.
Just as good as a big statement, because that's the best thing about Souls games.
Yes, and I think that this understands that... and I think that, who is it? Iron Pineapple released a video that was really good about this.
I could watch that, yeah.
Yeah, he talks about how, like, the enemies are pretty simple, right? They just kind of do one thing. Like, this guy just swings at you. This guy just throws stuff. But the really interesting thing is, how do you position those in an environment? And is the environment designed well? Is the guy throwing stuff, behind cool. 2 melee guys, behind 3 melee guys? Is he on top of something that you have to get around to? And this game, like, understands that. It's a lot smaller scale. It's a lot more linear, but it gets the sort of idea of the level design is actually the genius behind FromSoft games. It gets it, and it embraces it, and it does, I think, a pretty good job of emulating it. It's a good game. I'm going to keep playing it. I've heard it's only about 25 or 30 hours. I think I'm like maybe 10 in. I just beat the 4th major boss. I think there's only like maybe 9 or 10 major bosses, so...
Does he tell any lies in the game?
Yeah, I don't know what the exact plot of it is, but the other puppets have essentially the sort of Asimov robot rules where it's like, oh, you have to protect humanity, you have to do what a human says, you can't hurt a human, and you can't tell a lie, and then but the main character, who knows what his name is, nobody's told me, he can tell lies. That's how you sort of like...
Oh, that's a fun concept.
Yeah, so I think it's going to play into, I think this is, I'm pretty sure this is going sort of a Bloodborne Elden Ring way, where you collect this, your souls are called Ergo in this game, and all of the puppets are powered by Ergo, and I've found like, oh, we used to, harvest Ergo from this place, and the Ergo is put in here, and my assumption is that Ergo is some kind of like cosmic power or magic thing that is, bad or evil or harvested from real human souls. Maybe it's a demon souls thing. I don't know. I think that they're going to fully emulate FromSoft in that degree, where there is you thought you were just collecting, money, but it's souls or some bad magic or something.
It is likely something like Souls, because Ergo Proxy was about robots and humans coexisting, right? And
I didn't think about that. Well, and Ergo in Latin means, what does Ergo mean in Latin? It means like, Ergo is like therefore or thus. Okay, I don't know. That maybe doesn't mean anything. I don't know. It's a good game. I would say definitely don't level magic too hard like I did. From what I've seen, dexterity actually seems to be the best build. The strength stuff is okay though. So yeah, I enjoy it.
I bet Geppetto's the final boss.
He's in the game. He certainly might be. Well, it's funny. So in Bloodborne, right, you go to the dream to level up. There's a girl who lets you level up, and then there is a man in a wheelchair, and spoilers for a game that's like almost 10 years old now. That man in the wheelchair is either your final boss or your second to final boss, depending on your ending. And in Lies of P, you go to a hotel crot, and there is a girl that levels you up, and there is a woman in a wheelchair who seems kind of out of it. And my guess is she is a bad guy or a major plot point or something. So they are not hiding how influenced they are by Bloodborne here. It is very, very Bloodborne-like.
Makes sense. Nor do they need to.
Yeah.
As long as it's good, right?
Yeah, and I think it's pretty good. I'm probably going to play it right after this. So actually, I need to edit this video and then publish it tomorrow. But after that, I will play it.
Yeah, fair.
Cool. Well, anything else, Gautam, or are we getting out of here for this week?
Let's get out of here.
Thank you again, everybody, for listening or watching. Don't forget to leave us feedback in the comments, upvote, thumbs up, any positive reinforcement you can leave us. Please go do that. We appreciate it. If you want to check out a bit more manga content, you can follow me on Twitter. You can check out the White Gray Black channel. And if you feel like giving us some money, maybe you're crazy, maybe you forgot to take your medicine this week, you can go to patreon.com/WGBmanga. You can check us out there. Give us a subscription. Don't forget you're part of the podcast here, Gautam. Say goodbye to everybody.
That's right. You can reach me on my fax machine. So just go ahead and send me a fax. And I'll see you guys later.
Yeah. Hey, thanks again for being with us this week. And don't forget to read more manga.